أخرج المرء فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين إن الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
Can you give me the mic? It's right here, it's right here. Is it working? I don't know whose phone that is. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. Before we begin, please recite Surah Fatiha for your marhumin and for the marhumin of all those mu'minin and mu'minat that do not have anyone to pray on their behalf. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I want all of you guys to move closer. Don't worry, I won't bite. Come closer, come closer. That's good. Okay. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يوصي نعمه العادون ولا يؤدي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بهد الهمم ولا يناله غوث الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا أجل ممدود فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووتد بالصخر ميدان أرض ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن على أدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ومن لم يحكم بما أنزل الله فأولئك هم الظالمون صدق الله العلي العظيم. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we're getting closer to the 10th of Muharram, to the day of Ashur, we had said that we're going to look at those events that were the cornerstones of Karbala. And we looked at the Khilafat of Abu Bakr, which was a cornerstone because it was in his lifetime that he had one of the governors, as one of his governors, who ended up appointing his son to be Khalifa. We looked at how Lady Zahra salawatullah, Fadak being taken away was a cornerstone, and we said that that was really Fatima's. They were afraid that she was going to use the wealth, the income from that land to spread Ashhadu anna Aliyun Waliullah. Today, we're looking at the Khilafat of the second Khalifa. When it comes to Umar ibn Khattab, he ruled the Islamic Empire for about 10 years, a few months. And in these 10 years, the amount of expansion that happened in regards to Islam, it had not happened before then, not even in the Holy Prophet's time, not even in Abu Bakr's time. But when it comes to that expansion, did the Holy Prophet want Islam to expand the way it did? Could the Holy Prophet not have expanded Islam the way Umar ibn Khattab had it expand? One. Two, when it comes to Umar's rule, when he became Khalifa, he said the same thing Abu Bakr said, that I'm going to rule according to the Sunnah, I'm going to rule according to Abu Bakr's rule. So if that's the claim, just as Abu Bakr had said, I'm going to rule the same way the Holy Prophet ruled, then we could see the Khilafat of Abu Bakr engage and tell if whether or not he ruled the same way the Holy Prophet ruled. If Umar ibn Khattab is saying that I'm going to rule the same way the Holy Prophet ruled, then we need to look at his rule and see whether or not his rule was the same as the Holy Prophet's rule. Because at the end of the day, it was Umar ibn Khattab. What did he say? Kitab is enough. The book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is enough. If the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is enough, then we need to say if he ruled according to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this verse that I read, this verse that I started the lecture off with, what does it say? It starts off, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَحْكُمْ بِمَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الظَّالِمُونَ. Anyone that does not, anyone, and this was the verse that I used yesterday too in regards to Abu Bakr's rule. This verse basically says anyone that does not judge according to the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is deemed, then they are of zalimun, they are of the transgressors. Another verse of the Quran, same wording, the only word that's changed is the end, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, humul kafirun. Anyone that does not judge according to the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they are deemed to be a kafir. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said, if you do not judge according to his way, then you're a zalim, you're a kafir. Then we need to see if Abu Bakr, we need to see if Umar, we need to see if Uthman, we need to see if Amir al-Mu'mineen, we need to see these khulafa, did they rule the way the Holy Prophet ruled or not? Or did they rule based on their own judgment? And when you come and look into history about Umar, you see that a lot of the narrations that we have today, they come from his time. You see that the amount of emphasis that's put on him is not put on anyone else. And we'll come to understand why so much emphasis is put on him. In his time period, the fact that he was so harsh in his character, the way he was, all the Muslims, they were afraid of him. His harshness, the way he spoke to people, the way he interacted with people, it was harsh. To the point where the Muslims, they went and they complained to Abu Bakr. They complained to Abu Bakr, telling him, if you're going to, do not make him the Khalifa. Why? Because of his harshness. What does Abu Bakr reply? He says, look, when he becomes Khalifa, he'll tone that harshness down. But his harshness is the opposite of my soft-heartedness. His harshness is the opposite of my soft-heartedness. But when he becomes Khalifa, he'll calm down. That was what Abu Bakr said. Abu Bakr, when it came to Umar ibn Khattab, do you know how many people he consulted with to figure out if whether he should be Khalifa or not? Just 2 people, that was it. He asked 2 people about what they think about Umar. One of them was Uthman ibn Affan. Now you see how each one is laying the foundation, laying the bricks for the next one to come into power. It's Umar ibn Khattab who laid the foundation for who? Abu Bakr. Now it's Uthman who's kind of laying the foundation for Umar. So when he asked Uthman, he says, look, his character is better than his appearance. Uthman, he says, his character is better than his appearance. What does that tell you about his appearance? If Uthman is saying his character is better than his appearance. Uthman says this. He asked another companion, what do you think about Umar ibn Khattab being Khalifa? He says that he's a harsh person, but if you make that decision, that's a good decision. These were the only 2 people that Abu Bakr asked. That was it. Zubair, he came to Abu Bakr and he told him that you're the one who made him Khalifa. You see yourself the way that he treats the Muslims in your lifetime. What do you think he's going to do after you leave this world? What does Abu Bakr do? He gets mad at Zubair. He tells him, leave him alone. He tells him, leave him alone. This harshness, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran? When it comes to, for example, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam and Hazrat Harun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told both of them to go and speak to Fir'aun. To go and, what everything Fir'aun's done is enough now. That's it. Both of you go and speak to Fir'aun. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells both of them that speak to Fir'aun in a gentle manner. Speak to Fir'aun in a gentle manner. Why? So that maybe he'll heed the call. Maybe he'll have fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But speak to him in a gentle manner. This is who? Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them to speak to a kafir, a non-believer, in a gentle manner. And you have the Khalifa of the Muslim who's speaking to Muslims in that harsh tone. In that harsh tone. You look at the life of the Holy Prophet. Did the Holy Prophet speak to anyone, in an angry tone? Normally. No, he didn't. It's famous in history books, whether they be Shia, whether they be Sunni. It's famous in history books. What would Umar ibn Khattab do? He'd carry a whip with him. He'd walk around with a whip. He'd walk around with a whip. And if he had seen someone doing something contrary to what he believed was Islamic, he'd whip them. To the point where there are narrations, and for example, Tariq Khulafa, Umar ibn Khattab, he's walking, and as he's walking, he passes by a group of women. When he passes by a group of women, they were perfumed, so he smells the fragrance. He gets really annoyed, he gets really mad. And he says, if I knew which one of them was wearing that perfume, I would have definitely punished them. The narration, it goes on to say that one of the women in that group, they were hamila, they were pregnant. As soon as they see Umar ibn Khattab coming, they had an abortion. Stillbirth. Another, the same narration, another woman, as soon as she saw Umar ibn Khattab coming, she urinates. Not our books, Sunni books. Who? The Khalifa. Is this how scared the Muslims should be from their leader? They asked him, why is it that you're so harsh? Why is it that you're so harsh? What does he say? He says that if I'm not harsh, then no one will listen. If I'm not harsh, no one will listen to me. If I'm not harsh, no one will follow the Quran. Is this what Islam has taught? Is this how Islam wants people to be Muslim? Speak to them in a harsh way? Submit them forcefully? No. If you want to know where this idea came from, go back to history and read. Who was the first person who submitted people forcefully? It wasn't the Holy Prophet. Amir al-Mu'mineen complained to him. Zubair complained to him. The companions of the Holy Prophet complained to him, but he didn't care. Why? There's a reason for that. There's so many narrations in history, and you have to remember that a lot of the history that we have is not Shia sources. A lot of the history that we have is coming from Sunni sources. They themselves, they write in their books that Umar ibn Khattab, it was in his time so many khurafat happened. For example, bid'ats happened in his time period. For example, the smaller Hajj, the Umrah that was done during the time of Zul Hijjah, the time of Hajj. In the time of the Holy Prophet allowed it. In the time of Abu Bakr allowed it. In the time of Umar ibn Khattab, he didn't allow it. He didn't allow it. Another Muta, in the time of Holy Prophet, allowed. Time of Abu Bakr, allowed. In the time of Umar ibn Khattab, wasn't allowed. When he was asked, in their time period it was allowed, but in your time period you don't allow it. Why is that? What does he say? He says, Ana Zamil Muhammad. I am equal to Muhammad. I am equal to Muhammad. Or another translation, not equal, but I am a classmate of Muhammad. What does that mean when an individual says, I am equal to the Holy Prophet? I'm equal to Muhammad. Not even Prophet. I'm equal to Muhammad. What does that tell you about the intellect? What does that tell you about what this individual thought about the Holy Prophet when he doesn't even refer to him as Prophet? When he says that I am equal to Muhammad. I'm equal to Muhammad. That means what? That means that he's either brought the status of prophethood down, or he's taken his own status up to the status of prophethood. When you look at the Quran and you understand the Holy Prophet ﷺ, he is the answer to the dua of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam. Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam. The answer to the dua of Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam. Hazrat Ibrahim, Hazrat Ismail alayhi salam, they say, so in Surah Al-Baqarah, after the Kaaba, everything was raised, they say, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, from amongst them, raise up a prophet who will teach them the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who will cleanse them, who will teach them the wisdom. This is the dua of Hazrat Ibrahim and Hazrat Ismail. Where do you get the answer to this dua? Surah Al-Jumu'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? هُوَ الَّذِي بَعَثَ فِي الْأُمِّيِّينَ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَإِنْ كَانَ مِنْ قَبْلِ لَفِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who raised amongst them the unlettered people, the illiterate people. He raised amongst them who? A messenger. What does this messenger do? Then it starts listing everything Hazrat Ismail and Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam prayed for. What did they pray for? Ya Allah, raise up amongst them a messenger who would give them wisdom. It says, we are the ones who raise up a messenger who gives them wisdom. Raise up amongst them a messenger who will read to them your signs, your ayat. Surah Al-Jumu'ah, we raise someone who reads to them our signs, our ayat. Who was this? This was the Holy Prophet. When you make the claim that I am his classmate, when you make the claim that I am his equal, what are you basically saying? That I'm also a prophet. I'm also a prophet. And you see that in his lifetime, he prevented the companions of the Holy Prophet from leaving Medina. In his lifetime, he prevented the companion of the Holy Prophet from leaving Medina. Hatta for the Muhajirin, the ones that migrated with the Holy Prophet, if they wanted to go to battle, he told them, no, you already fought enough battles in the time of the Holy Prophet, that's enough. That's enough. Meaning what? You don't need any more sawab, that's it. Not only that, there was another reason. Another reason he himself, he says, while some of the companions got permission from him to leave, he goes with them outside to the gates of Medina. When he goes with them, he asks them, he tells them, do you know why I'm walking with you? They go, no. He goes, look, when you get to the other cities, do not relay the traditions of the Holy Prophet. Do not relay to them the narrations of the Holy Prophet. Don't relay to them the narrations. I'm one of your companions. When you tell the companion of the Holy Prophet not to relay the narrations of the Holy Prophet, what is happening then? It's not Islam that is spreading, because if the narrations of the Holy Prophet are Islam, then it's not Islam that is spreading. What's spreading now? The individual's opinion. Meaning what? Meaning if something happens in that city, in that community, if Umar ibn Khattab has told them do not relay the narration of the Holy Prophet, then what do they have to do? They'll have to rely on their own opinion. So now the Islam that is forming is not the Islam of the Holy Prophet anymore. This is the Islam of Umar ibn Khattab. The Islam of these companions who are relaying their own opinions. So what had happened by the time Imam Hussein? Because after Umar ibn Khattab, you still have Uthman. After Uthman, you have 4 years of Amir al-Mu'minin. After Amir, you still have Muawiyah. And then you have Yazid. There's still time there. If in the time of Umar, this is already starting, where the narrations of the Holy Prophet, they're telling people do not narrate these narrations of the Holy Prophet. By the time Yazid comes, people have forgotten these narrations. They don't know what these true narrations are. You look at the Khilafat of Umar ibn Khattab, you see that it was in his time period that not just the narrations, but a lot of exterior, a lot of narrations or a lot of stories from outside of Islam came within Islam. It was in his time period. where they have in their own books that Umar ibn Khattab, when he became Muslim, after he became Muslim, he came to Medina, he would usually hang out with the Jews also. He'd learn from them. He'd get information from them. When he would get information from them, he'd go to the Holy Prophet and he'd relay to them, or he'd relay to him that information. For example, about Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam, about Hazrat Yaqub alayhi salam. The Holy Prophet, he gets angry at him and he tells him, do not listen to those stories. I am the messenger. I'm the messenger. What I tell you. But he doesn't listen. He continues to the point where Hafsa, she comes to the Holy Prophet and she's telling the Holy Prophet about this is what they have in their book. Hafsa. The Holy Prophet gets angry at her and he tells her, why are you getting information from them? I am the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Yusuf was alive today in my time, he would have to obey what I say. But what would, can we please, everyone, move up front? Salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala. One more time, salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So what's happening already? They're already being influenced from outside thought. In the time of the Holy Prophet. Now when the Holy Prophet's gone, what's happening? There's no one to tell them not to do it anymore. Why? Because now Umar ibn Khattab, he thinks that he has that same authority that the Holy Prophet has. In terms of governing. He has that same authority. He thinks that he has the same authority that the Holy Prophet had in terms of fiqh, in terms of legislature. Meaning what? Just as the Holy Prophet made something halal and haram, he also has that authority to make something halal and haram. And that's why he makes some things haram. That's why he made other things halal. This authority to make halal and haram, it was already said by the Holy Prophet. Halal Muhammad halal ilal qiyamah. Haram Muhammad haram ilal. The halal of Muhammad, the permissible of Muhammad is permissible until Yawm al-Qiyamah. The impermissible of Muhammad is impermissible until the day of Qiyamah. If that's the case, and that's a narration that we have, they have, then who was Umar ibn Khattab to make something halal haram? Who was Uthman to make something halal haram? When it came to Abu Bakr, look at the difference between Abu Bakr's Khilafat and Umar ibn Khattab's Khilafat. The narrators, they say, look, the person that was actually running Abu Bakr was Umar ibn Khattab. Abu Bakr would not do anything without his consult. He would not do anything without his consent. Without Umar's consent. That's the reason he didn't want Umar to go in the army of Uthama. Why? Because it was Umar who had made him Khalifa. It was Umar who was telling him exactly what to do. And for this reason, they say what? That Abu Bakr's Khilafat was actually the Khilafat of Umar. His Khilafat was actually the Khilafat of Umar. Basically what? A puppet government. Abu Bakr was just a puppet. It was from behind the scenes, it was Umar ibn Khattab that was running him. And when you read history, you understand that that's exactly what is happening. That's exactly what is happening. When Abu Bakr was about to pass away, he writes in his will. What do you see? Abu Bakr writes in his will. When he's writing, not him, Uthman ibn Affan, he's the one writing the will. And while Uthman starts, the narration, it states that Abu Bakr, he went unconscious. When he went unconscious, Uthman already knew what needed to be written. He had already started, and then he finished it. When Abu Bakr was unconscious, he finished the writing. When he finished the writing, Abu Bakr, he gains conscience again. He becomes conscious again, and he asks him, can you read to me what you wrote? Uthman, he reads to him what he wrote. At the end, he writes what? That the Khalifa after me is supposed to be Umar ibn Khattab. Abu Bakr, he says, okay, give that to Umar. Give that to Umar. Umar, while he's carrying that letter, he knows exactly what's happened. He already knows. While he's carrying that letter to Masjid Nabawi, he runs into a companion. When he runs into a companion, the companion sees that letter and he asks him, what's written in that letter? Umar, he says, I don't know what's written in the letter, but I will be the first to obey what's written in it. I'll be the first to obey what's written in it. The companion, he looks at Umar, he goes, I know exactly what's written in it. What's written in it is that you were the one, the first year you were the one who made him Khalifa. Now you're the one who's becoming Khalifa. Basically what? You made him Khalifa, now he's making you Khalifa. So that tells you that the companions of the Holy Prophet already knew at that time that both of them, they had political motivations. Both of them, they had political motivations. From the day that the Holy Prophet made them brothers, on the day of brotherhood, they were never found separate. There was only one time that they argued against each other. That was one time that we can find in history where they actually argued against each other and they raised their voices in front of the Holy Prophet. And that's why that verse of the Quran was revealed. Do not raise your voice in the presence of the Holy Prophet, lest you invalidate all your good deeds. That was revealed why? Because both of these individuals, they were arguing over who should go and greet one of the tribes that was coming to become Muslim. They both argued. One of them said, no, it'll be me. The other said, no, it'll be me. The narration said they started cursing at each other. They started cursing at each other. If the akhlaq of all of the companions was the same, then why is one cursing another? If it's permissible for them to curse each other for something like that, and the verse of the Quran was revealed that if you raise your voice in the presence of the Holy Prophet, then your good deeds are going to be invalidated. What does that tell you about their good deeds then? Invalidated. Invalidated. But if you say, you know what, that was earlier Medina. They asked for forgiveness, that's fine. But that rule applies until when? Until the last moments of the Holy Prophet's life. If you raise your voice in the presence of the Holy Prophet, your deeds will be undone. Your good deeds will be invalidated. So when he objected, he raised his voice in the house of the Holy Prophet before the Holy Prophet passed away. Does this verse not apply to him? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Once again, brothers, can you come forward, especially from this side, if you can all come forward. You guys are fine, you guys are fine. One more time, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One of the things that Umar ibn Khattab would do in his time period, and look at the way he treated certain individuals. One of the things that he would do in his reign is that whoever his ambassadors were, whoever his representatives were, he would call them back after a year. He would take half their wealth that they had. He would take half their wealth that they had, and he'd put half of it in Baytul Mal, and he'd give them the other half. They'd get angry. Hatta Abu Huraira, he was one of them. He got angry to the point where he told them, when Umar, after taking half his wealth, he told him, okay, go back, you're still my representative. He said, no, I don't want to be your representative. But that's what he would do. He would take half their wealth, put it in Baytul Mal. The other half, he told them to keep it. Amir al-Mu'mineen told them that if you think that they're stealing from the treasury, if you think they're stealing from the Islamic State, then get rid of them. Why do you bring them, take half their wealth, give them the other half, and then send them back and make them your ambassador? He didn't have an answer. He didn't want the close companion of the Holy Prophet to go. Why? Because he felt that they were going to teach the narrations of the Holy Prophet. He felt that they were going to get people to themselves and his khilafat would be in danger. He felt that his khilafat would be in danger. The only person that he would not call back and take half his wealth, do you know who that was? Muawiyah bin Abu Sufyan. He never called him, didn't take half his wealth. Or his brother, Yazid bin Abu Sufyan. Didn't call these two individuals. So you see, from his khilafat, you see exactly how this foundation is being laid down. When he's not calling certain individuals, when he's not punishing certain individuals, he's giving certain individuals rights that he has not given others. This is the adalat of the companions, the adalat of the khulafa, the ones that represent who? The Holy Prophet. Abu Bakr was not called Amir al-Mu'mineen. It was in his time period. He was the first one that was called Amir al-Mu'mineen. The phrase Faruq that has been given to him, it wasn't given to him by the Holy Prophet. In their own books, it was given to him by Jews. It was given to him by Jews. When you look at his history, you see that he was influenced by non-Muslims. The amount of influence that you see on his life, the amount of influence that you see within Islam in his rule from non-Muslims, you don't see it in the others. You don't see it in the others. It was him. In his lifetime, non-Arabs could not be in the first row of Salat. Non-Arabs could not be in the first row of Salat. They asked him, why is that? He said, because they're non-Arabs. Arabs are superior to non-Arabs. Arabs are superior to Ajam. Ajam. No Persian was allowed to be in the first row. No Persian. It was in his rule, when it came to distributing Baytul Mal, or distributing from Baytul Mal, what would he do? He would give the Arabs more than he would give the non-Arabs. He would give the Arabs more than he would give the non-Arabs. We'll come to when Amir al-Mu'minin, in his rule, when he started distributing Baytul Mal the same way the Holy Prophet did, not based on Arab, non-Arab, not based on what tribe you came from. He didn't distribute that way. But Umar ibn Khattab, he distributed that way. What tribe are you coming from? Are you Arab? Okay. If you're Arab, what tribe are you coming from? If you're coming from certain tribes, you would get more. When Amir al-Mu'mineen became Khalifa, he started distributing, giving it to everyone equally. When he did, one of the people, they complained to Amir al-Mu'mineen. They said, Ya Ali, Umar ibn Khattab, he used to give me more because I'm Arab. What does Amir al-Mu'mineen do? He picks up dirt in his hand and he says, can you separate the Arab dirt from the non-Arab dirt? Separate to me the Arab dirt from the non-Arab dirt. What? I can't do that. Then what's the difference being Arab or non-Arab? Why does that matter? Why does that matter? This is what Amir al-Mu'mineen had to deal with. It was in Umar's time. This what we read in Adhan. Hayya ala khairil amal. Hayya ala khairil amal. It was taken out of the Adhan in his time period. Why was it taken out? And there was another phrase that was added in his time period. But why was this phrase taken out? Their books, their narrations, they state that when it came to jihad, he thought that there was no better act better than jihad. He gave special preference to jihad. That's odd. He gave such special importance to jihad, but when the companions would come and ask them, let us go to jihad, he would say no. He gave such importance to jihad, but when it comes to jihad, you don't find anything in any historical book where he even injured an enemy of the Holy Prophet. You don't find anything. And all the Sunni historians, they say the same thing. From the battles, he would run away. In the battles, he would try to scare not the enemies, he would try to scare the Muslims. When you read about what happened in Khaybar, what does he say? When Marhab came out, what does he say? He tries to scare the Muslims and he tells them, I've heard that he can take on 1,000 people. I've heard that he can take on 1,000 people. Is that how you're going to get the Muslims to defeat the enemies? By scaring them? No. So when you see all the acts that he's done, you understand that no, this wasn't for Islam. Everything that he did was for his own benefit. It wasn't for the sake of Islam. It wasn't for the sake of the Holy Prophet. No, it was for the sake of himself. Sallallahu alaihi Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Everything that he did was for his own sake. In the beginning, when it came to wealth, their narration state that in the beginning, when it came to wealth, he wouldn't take much wealth. But when the people told him that one of the verses, the verse that you're interpreting, it wasn't for you. It's not meant for Muslims. That verse is meant for the non-Muslims. What does he start doing? He starts taking more wealth, to the point where the narrations, they state that when it came to the dowry for one of his wives, he determined that, you know what, I'll pay 4,000 dirhams. 4,000 dirhams today, maybe you all don't know what it will amount to. 4,000 dirhams, those are gold. That's gold, pure gold. You look at what it amounts to today, and you'll be shocked. You'll be shocked at what it amounts to today. That was for what? Mahar. For mahar. You look at what he had for himself even after he passed away. Some of his relatives, when it came to splitting his wealth, they're taking 20,000 dirham. That's millions of dollars in today's terms. Millions of dollars. Where is this wealth coming from? When it came to the Holy Prophet, when there was mal ghanimat, when there was any mal in Baytul Mal, it would be distributed equally. The Holy Prophet wouldn't keep much. Only what it was required for him for that day. Only what was required for him for that month. That was it. Amir al-Mu'mineen, the same thing. But when it came to him, no. This is where it starts. When the Holy Prophet said in his last days that after me, there will be kingdoms, Umar ibn Khattab used to question that the way I'm ruling, am I ruling like a king or not? Am I ruling like a king or am I not? The khilafat that I have, is it that kingdom that the Holy Prophet warned us about or no? If you yourself aren't sure whether or not your rule is the rule that the Holy Prophet spoke out against, if you're not sure about that type of rule, then why are you ruling? Why are you ruling? If you're ruling claiming that this is the rulership of the Holy Prophet, then you should have 100% certainty that your rulership is 100% sahih. You should have no doubt. But the fact that he's doubting his rulership tells you what? That he wasn't the Khalifa of Rasulullah. That he wasn't the rightful Khalifa of Rasulullah. When it came to expansion, Islamic expansion, this is something a lot of people, they pride over. You know, Islam expanded so much in the time of Umar ibn Khattab. Yes, it expanded. But is that how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted it to expand? That's the question. The Holy Prophet could have expanded Islam in that same manner in his time period. He could have. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. But why did Umar ibn Khattab decide to do it that way? You look at his time period, when they got all the way to Spain, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he gets angry at him. Why did you order the burning of the books? Because, Ya Ali, those are non-Islamic books. Those are non-Islamic books. Amir al-Mu'mineen goes, so what? It still got knowledge. It still has knowledge. Someone who himself was getting knowledge from non-Islamic sources, now he's telling Amir al-Mu'mineen what? Those are non-Islamic books. Someone in the lifetime of the Holy Prophet is bringing non-Islamic books to the Holy Prophet. Now is telling Imam Ali Islam those are non-Islamic books. You see the hypocrisy there? Look at the hypocrisy. find that hypocrisy, for example, in Amir al-Mu'mineen. You won't. You won't. Even when Amir al-Mu'mineen was battling, Ali ibn Abi Talib, even when he was battling against the Muslims, he warned them. He warned them. He told them when he was battling the Khawarij, the slogan that you have, La hukum illa lillah. There is no rule except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rule. There is no rule except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What did Amir al-Mu'mineen say? He says that slogan, that phrase is correct, but the interpretation of that phrase is absolutely wrong. The interpretation of that phrase is absolutely wrong. How did they interpret that phrase? Meaning what? Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala physically needs to have justice on this earth. Physical justice like that. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, no, that's not how it works. The representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to mete out the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who's going to rule according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He tried to correct them. The only time or the only reason he fought against them was when they started killing innocent lives or when they started killing innocent people. That's it. That's when he came out against them. You look at Umar ibn Khattab, in the name of Islam, he's killing non-Muslims. In the name of Islam, you either submit or you get killed. Where? In the time of the second Khalifa. And you see today there are Muslims that have that rule. You either become Muslim or you die. Where did this come from? The second Khalifa. So you begin to understand that when it came to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and the reason he was rising up, one, the narrations were not being given to the people. Two, the few companions or the companions that were left, they were hiding the narrations of the Holy Prophet. In Medina, when Abu Abdullah al-Husayn was leaving Medina, the companions, they come to him and they say, Yabna Rasulullah, don't leave. Don't leave. Imam Hussein, he tells them, he reminds them, you guys are companions of my grandfather. You all are companions of my grandfather. Come with me. He gives them an opportunity, and they say no. And you see some of those companions that were in other parts of the world, in Kufa, that had gone to Kufa, that had gone to Sham. You see that they're in the side of Yazid la'natullahi alayhi. Why? Because the hatred that was already put into the minds of the people. The status of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, it had come down in the hearts and the minds of the individuals. That's why they didn't join. That's why they didn't join. So when you come to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the narrations, by the time he gets to Karbala, do you all know how many people were there? Over 500 people. Over 500 people. But now, it's the night of Ashur. What does he do? Imam Hussein, he says to them, look, I have conditions. Tomorrow there's only going to be shahadat. The ones that are with me, they're not living anymore. That's it. They're shahadat. All of you came saying that you wanted to support me. First and foremost, if you have any debts, if there's debt on your shoulder, you can leave. You can leave. And if you're going to be, if you feel that, you know what, the people will ridicule you because you've left, I'll turn off all these lamps, I'll turn off the candles, I'll blow out the candles, you can leave in the darkness. No one will say anything. No one will say anything. Those are the people that left. The 72 that we hear about, the over 100 that we hear about, those are the people that stayed. What did they not have? Taqwa. Taqwa. What does taqwa mean? Taqwa is not the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a whole topic that needs to be discussed. Taqwa is not the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the sense that we have it today. Taqwa, it means getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one of the prerequisites is that we fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's wrath. We fear His wrath. Not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we fear His wrath. That's what we forget. When it came to Laylatul Ashura, the night of Ashur, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam, he's making rounds around the camps. And Abu al-Fazl Abbas al-Islam, he sees him and he asks, who is it? Imam Hussein al-Islam, he shouts, Ya Abbas, it's me, you don't have to worry. Mullah, what are you doing this late at night? Abbas, I'm taking out all the thorns in the sands. Why? Because tomorrow is the day of Ashur. The women, the children, they're going to run, they're going to be chased in this sand, in this desert. And when they're chased, I don't want any thorns to get stuck in the feet of these children. So I'm taking out all these thorns. Abu al-Fazl Abbas al-Islam, he starts to cry and he says, Mullah, I can do it. He goes, no, Abbas, I'm the one who's going to do it. Tonight, brothers and sisters, we commemorate the shahadat of who? Ali al-Asghar. The 6-month son of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam, who almost brought a revolution in the army of Yazid without even saying a single word. Without even saying a single word. Who is that? That 6-month-old of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam. Sallallahu alayka ya Rasulallah. Sallallahu alayka ya Amir al-Mu'mineen. Sallallahu alayka ya Siddiqatu Fatima. Sallallahu alayka ya Hasan al-Mujtaba. Sallallahu alayka ya Gharib al-Ghuraba. Ya Aba Abdullah al-Husayn. Brothers, sisters, when it comes to Ali al-Asghar, Imam Hussain al-Islam, when he leaves Medina, Ali al-Asghar is in the arms of his sister Fatima Sughra, and he wouldn't leave her lap. When he wouldn't leave her lap, Imam Hussain al-Islam, he goes into the ears of Ali al-Asghar and he just says one phrase. As soon as he says that phrase, Ali al-Asghar, he goes into his father's arms. When he goes into his father's arms, that's when Fatima Sughra, she starts to cry and she says to him, oh father dear, please leave him with me. And Imam Hussain al-Islam, he says to Sughra, oh Sughra, he has to come with me. When he has to come with me, it's Ashur. Imam Hussain al-Islam is the only one left now. When he goes out into the desert and he calls out, Hal min nasir yansurna. Is there anyone, is there any helper to help me? The narration states that when he says this, the women, they start to cry in one of the tents. When they start to cry, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam, he comes back to the tent and he says to Zainab, oh Zainab, why are all of you crying? I'm still alive. That's when Zainab, she calls out, she says, oh Abu Abdullah, as soon as you said, is there any helper to help me? That's when this 6-month-old, he fell out of this cradle and he starts to cry. Imam Hussain al-Islam, he understood that the reason that he fell out was because he is the final helper of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam. Imam Hussain al-Islam, he wants to take Asghar to the battlefield, but before he takes him, the mother of Asghar, she says to Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, Ya Hussein, can you give him to me for a moment? Imam Hussain, he gives him to the mother, and the mother, she takes Asghar and she says to Asghar, oh Asghar, I want you to know that I'm not from the Banu Hashim. Oh Asghar, when you go to the battlefield, protect Abu Abdullah al-Husayn al-Islam, or else the milk that I have fed you, I will disown that milk. When she says this, she gives Asghar back to Imam Hussain al-Islam. Imam Hussain, he goes, what does he do to Asghar? He wraps him in his abba. When he wraps him in his abba, he doesn't even go on his horse, he goes on a camel. Why? Because he doesn't want the enemies to think that he's come to fight them. The enemies, when they see this, they think that Hussein has come with the Quran, but no, it's this 6-month-old baby. When it's this 6-month-old baby Hussein, he tells the enemies, oh enemies, you have animosity to me, you have hatred against me, you're fighting against me, but what has this 6-month-old baby done? Can you not see? For 3 days it's been thirsty, it wants water. I'll put him on the floor, you can come and pick him up, give him water yourself. When Umar Saad sees that in the camp of Umar Saad there's going to be a revolution, what does he do? He tells Hurmala, oh Hurmala, cut off the tongue of Hussein. When he says this to Hurmala, he takes out an arrow. Brothers, sisters, when a hunter goes hunting, what does he do? He looks at that hunt, he looks at what he's hunting. If the animal is large, he would use a large arrow. If the animal is small, he would use a smaller arrow. Hurmala, he says that when I was going to shoot at Ali al-Asghar, I ran out of all the small arrows. All I had was larger arrows that are to be used on horses. When he says he put that arrow in his bow, and as he took that bow back, he sees that there's a lady that appears in front of him and he lets go. He does it again, a lady appears in front of him, lets go. When he does it a third time, that's what Umar Saad, he says to him, oh Hurmala, why are you fearing like this? He says that every time I take this bow back, every time I want to strike, there's a lady that appears in front of me and she says to me, oh Hurmala, you have children of your own. That's when Hurmala, he strikes Ali al-Asghar. When he strikes Ali al-Asghar in the throat, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein al-Islam, he takes that blood and he wants to throw it up to the sky. But there's a voice that comes from the sky that says, Ya Abu Abdullah, do not throw this innocent blood into the sky or the ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cease. Then he wants to throw it onto the floor. And there's a voice that comes to the floor, Ya Abu Abdullah, do not throw this sacred blood onto the floor or else the ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cease. That's when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, what does he do? He takes his 6-month-old, he puts it in his abba, and he wants to go back towards the tent. When he goes back towards the tent, 7 times he moves forward, 7 times he moves back. Why? Because there are 2 women that are waiting. One is a 6-year-old girl, the other is a mother. They're waiting for the return of Ali al-Asghar. The mother, she asks Abu Abdullah, Ya Hussein, did my son, did he help you in this battle? Then there's that 6-year-old who says to the father, oh father dear, did Ali al-Asghar drink any water? That's when Hussein says, oh Sakina, he drank from the pond of Kawthar, and from today on he will never be thirsty again. Brothers, sisters, Imam Hussein, he takes the mother, he tells her that after I'm Shaheed tomorrow, these enemies, they're going to trample over my body and they're going to trample over the body of all of these shuhada. I want you to do something. We need to bury Asghar somewhere so they do not trample over this body. The narrations, they say that Imam Hussein, he went into the back of the tent, he buried Ali al-Asghar, and when the 10th of Ashur happened, when they were getting the heads of all of the shuhada, the narrations state that some of the enemies, they realized that there was someone missing, and one of the enemies, they say to everyone else that I saw Hussein with my own eyes bury someone in the back of the tent. What did the enemies do? They take the spears and they start digging it into the ground. And after a few moments, the body of Asghar, it appears on one of the spears. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa la'natullah ala qawm al-kafirin. Matama Hussein.